Are you satisfied with your understanding of sustainability? If not, like me, imagine a journey together, a pluralistic one, with innovators, startup, academia, NGO, all together looking for solution to the greatest challenge of our time. I'm Samuele Tini, and this is the Sustainability Journey.
Welcome to another episode, and today we are jumping again, going round the globe. We are going now to a place which is dear to my heart, which I visited, and an history of restoration and conservation, which has impressed the world. So I'm here with Larissa Sousa from Gorongosa National Park. Thank you so much, Larissa, for being here.
Hi, Samuel. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here and to be able to talk about myself and about conservation, about Gorongosa specifically, and to share my experience in general.
Thank you so much, Larissa, for coming. And as I said, the work in Gorongosa, it has astonished the world. It's been one of the best known example of how to restore environment and now also to balance communities and conservation. But before that, we are very curious now to understand who is Larissa, and especially, having a woman as one of the leader, in this effort of restoration. So if you could present a bit yourself.
So I'm Larissa, as I said, I am 31 years old. I am trained in public relations and management. I studied in Mozambique first, and then I did my bachelor's degree in Finland, which was also very interesting, very cold country, especially for me coming from a very hot place such as Mozambique, going to the opposite direction. But it was very interesting to be able to learn and see things on the other side of the world. And then I came back to Mozambique in 2012, which I decided to come back and give back and see how I could contribute better back in my country, which was very exciting for me. I started working, and at the same time, I decided to do my master's degree. So I did an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, in Africa University in Zimbabwe. But I've always tried to do and see things in a diverse way. So that's why this very spread out education background. When I finished my MBA, I started working at a demining company called the Halo Trust, which I was managing the location in Chimoio, which was also very exciting, very fun. And then I went on to working with education, which then twisted and went to the other direction, which led me to get to conservation and to Gorongosa National Park, which was very exciting. And I'm very glad I did that. And I'm a person who believes in destiny. So it was very exciting for me to end up in conservation, which I am still today. I started working in the park, actually doing education. I co-founded the girls education program, which is under the human development sector in the park. So the park has two big objectives, which is to protect the biodiversity alongside the human development. So we need to make sure that there is development, that there is sustainability, and that the people that live around the national park are also catered for, so that they are the ones who are the stewardess. They are the ones who are making sure that there is sustainability, because as most of us are coming from the outside, and so we need to make sure the people who are from those areas understand why it is important to conserve, to preserve. And in most cases, especially in Africa, these are very rural areas which don't have basic education, basic health, basic livelihoods and alternatives. And so that's where we put a lot of focus to make sure that there is this so-called sustainability for conservation at the end of the day.
Wow, you are doing an incredible job, Larissa, and it's really interesting. I really appreciate also, your very diverse educational background from Europe to other African countries, and your passion also. I really liked what you said, the two pillars, the biodiversity, the conservation, but also the human development. And my question is going a bit there, before, because I'm sure many people are not really familiar with Gorongosa, and then that's why we need also to discuss a bit the story. And it is a wonderful story. The importance of conservation, especially in this moment where Africa is growing. It is the continent of the future. We are the continent of the future. We have a big heritage in natural resources and biodiversity. And we are one of the biggest carbon sink. Either us here in Kenya, you there in Mozambique, and all over Africa, the Congo and others. So how important is conservation for our continent?
Nowadays, it's not a importance of how important it is, because this should be in everyone's agenda. So it's how big of a priority you are putting, but it should always be under our agenda, because conservation is a part of us. If we are not conserving, if we are not making sure that there is an earth, a planet for us to live in, then we are not doing anything for our survival. So conservation should always be there. And when I say putting it as a priority, is what I mean is that we need to make sure that basic needs are catered for before we can consider conservation. And as you said, we as Africans, we have other challenges ahead of conservation. So we have people not catered for. We have people who are hungry. We have people who don't have jobs. We have people who are sick. And so how are these being catered for before we can tackle conservation? So that's why we in Gorongosa do these two important things alongside, which is making sure that the people who have these needs are catered for first. And then we also include conservation as one of the priorities. So if we have people who have food on the table, who are educated, who have healthcare catered for, then they are able to then put conservation on the table as well. And if you can get money doing conservation, then that's a triple effect. And that's what we're trying to do now, is putting this aspect of income. So how can people do conservation and at the same time being able to get an income and have an alternative livelihood? And one of the examples that we are doing very well is the coffee and the honey activities that we're doing along in the park. And the coffee, for example, we have the idea of restoring this forest, which is up in Mount Gorongosa, which was one of the biggest tropical forests that we have in the country. And so how can we do that? And we also need to realize what destroyed. So what were the causes for people to cut down these trees in this area? And so after analyzing that, one of the biggest reasons was poverty. So people were doing that to make sure that they earn a living. And of course, there's other cases of commercial farming as well, but the main was because of subsistence farming. And so how do we tackle that? And so we started seeing different ideas and experimenting, and coffee was one that is working very well, which is we are planting native trees and as well as planting coffee under the shade. So this is a shade grown coffee. And so people have to plant the native trees so that the coffee can grow beneath it and they can get money from the coffee. And so this has been a very interesting experience, and people are really enjoying. They're getting money from it, and we can see a difference. We can see development going on now up in that area, and it's very exciting times that people are now putting conservation on the top of their list. So I think that's how we see the importance of conservation and sustainability. And as an African, I think now more we are seeing conservation as not something for other people to do, but it's everyone's duty to do so. And as a national park, we also see tourism as one of the ways to ensure sustainability. And normally in places like this, it's always been said that it's for foreigners to come and explore and do these things. And we're trying to see things differently and making sure that these people come and sit in a safari jeep and do a safari and look at an elephant, and for them to understand and strengthen this idea of what's going on and why are we at the end of the day doing this conservation. And what are the benefits of it. And so you actually have to involve and engage everyone in the process. And it's something that we call that is in fashion. Conservation is in fashion now. Everyone has to do it if we want to make sure that there is green in the next 10, 20 years, then we need to do things now.
Definitely. I think, Larissa, you have touched the point. I mean, you have, I think, the curiosity of people on the other side, they are listening to us. I say, coffee, elephants, conservation, community, Mozambique, Gorongosa. So can you tell a bit the history of the park, the history of the project and the restoration? And then we go a bit deeper in also the community empowerment and livelihood.
So yeah, Gorongosa is right in the center of Mozambique. We are one of the oldest national parks. So it was declared in 1960. At the time, the Portuguese were leading that. And yeah, so along the years, after Mozambique got independent in 75, there was a civil war until about 1994, which were very hard years for Mozambique in general. And the center of Mozambique, especially because this was a civil war between two main parties, so Frelimo and Renamo, and that is an area that is considered to be the opposition party. And so it was a lot more affected, and about 90% of the biodiversity, especially fauna, was destroyed. So as you said, when you went there were basically no animals. You couldn't see elephants, you couldn't see the big animals, you couldn't see the baboons, you couldn't, yeah. So it was, because of the war, it was very destroyed. And people were killing animals to eat, they were killing animals to sell their trophies, to buy firearms, and they were killing animals for space. So there was not only a civil war, but as well a war against everything else that was there. And so for us, they were very hard years. And after that, the government of Mozambique tried to see how it would be possible to restore this paradise that it's called. And at the time, President Chisano, who was also very linked with Nelson Mandela, who always spoke about doing combined conservation and the human development. And so Chisano, then president, invited Greg Carr from the Carr Foundation to come and see the park and see what he could do. And in 2004, 2005, Mr. Greg Carr came to Mozambique, visited the park, and also fell in love. And he decided to come and help restore and co-manage Gorongosa National Park. And so that's how the whole restoration project started. And since then, Gorongosa has been able to get back animals and restore the areas that were destroyed. And yeah, and it's been a long journey, but it's very exciting that we have always had this idea of working on conservation as well as on the people, because you can't separate that. And so I think this has been one of the very important and good things that we have done. We really, really hope that people can see this as an example.
I've seen also you are being featured in wonderful National Geographic stories. The conservation was wonderful. I've seen that iconic species like leopard are back. Wild dogs are back. You know, the famous Casa dos Leões, you know, the House of Lion, now hosts again lions. It really has been amazing, the work in conservation. Maybe it's something that's touched the hearts and souls of people to see how animals that were no longer seen, now they are coming back and nature is coming back. But as you said, this restoration has been also possible because of the other leg, the leg of the community, the one also you are there. You know, I'm really also working and fostering, you know, especially community girls empowerment and, you know, the education for girls, which I think is really important. Can you talk about the social side, the community empowerment, the livelihood? Because that is the core, I think, on how we can have a win-win situation for conservation.
We work on specific things, which is making sure that people have livelihoods, that they have an income so that they can feed themselves. We also work directly with the Ministry of Health to make sure that we are catering for healthcare and facilities in terms of infrastructure. We do mobile brigades around the communities which are far away from healthcare centers. We make sure that there is better nutrition using the local food and what they have locally. We also encourage community gardens, school gardens, just to make sure that um, there's no malnutrition in these areas. But we also work with education. And in education, we first focused on girls' education, which I said I co-founded the project, which is called Girls Clubs. And the idea was that girls are the ones that are most marginalized in terms of education, and they are not put as a priority. They get married early, they get early pregnancies. And so the idea was to make sure that girls are educated, because when they are educated, they make sure that the next generation is also educated. So there is also the sustainability factor where we focus on empowerment. And so working with girls, working with women in general was something very important from the start. And in conservation, it's also said that women are the ones that most destroy nature, because they want to open fields to make sure that they feed their kids, for example. And so working with these women in the community to ensure that they know about conservation, but they also need to feed their children at the end of the day. So trying to make them understand the importance of conservation is something vital. And we making sure that we're not only working with girls, so the younger generation, but also the women who are old, who have had early pregnancies, have had early marriages, because they are the ones who can give the examples of what wasn't going well. And they can also learn and really focus on what can be a better future for their own children, their own daughters at the end of the day. And so it's working with these women to make sure that they can get independence, because before they didn't have a voice, before they couldn't make decisions on their own. And so if they are now able to work together with their partners, that they are part and engaged in this family and relationship. And that's how we are trying to make sure that there is more equity in everything we do, and there is also the sustainability factor while working with women empowerment, because there's cases of when you empower the woman a lot more, and then we have another problem of equality. And so it's to make sure that we're working with both. And we also are making sure that there is equality in our program. So in education, we also working with both boys and girls. In the girls clubs, there's not only girls, but there's also boys. So they have to be a part of the change. We can't just say we are empowering women and just focusing on women and not making sure the men is also there to be a part of this change. Behavior change is something that takes generations. So the park has been there since 2000. Well, the restoration project is what I mean, for a long time. And we have started seeing change. We have started seeing the impact of all these activities that we've been doing, but it takes a generation for you to see this big change, this behavior change.
I want now to go a bit there, because that is what impact stories. Something that you have noticed. You have mentioned the coffee. You have mentioned honey, which is also something I'm also doing here in this part of the world. It's very important for conservation. And the stories about this now is from 2004. It will be almost 20 years soon. Within this year, if you can tell us a bit of some impact stories, something that you have seen and you can witness on how the project and the work of the national park is transforming communities.
So as I said, the park has two main objectives, which is protecting the biodiversity, which we are very happy to say that it's the restoration project has been successful. At some point, we can say that we are no longer working in the restoration because we have successfully done that in terms of fauna and restoring the biodiversity that was there during this time, which is very, very good and positive for us. And the human development part, we also started doing alongside that. But as I said, it takes generations to change. And you just said it's about 20 years now since we started working on the Gorongosa project. But we can see a lot of changes. And as I said, it's basically focusing on health, education, and livelihoods. And so what kind of developments can we see in education wise? We can see a lot more changes in terms of girls' education, because a lot more girls are being allowed to go to school. They're being allowed to continue school, because it's very common that in the earlier grades, so grade 1 to 4, there is a lot more girls in the classes. And as you go up the grades, there is less and less girls. And we are happy to say that there is a lot more girls continuing with the education. There is less early marriages. But we also can say that the government is also helping a lot in that sense, because in 2019, the government announced a law that is a crime now to marry an early child. And so the law is now on our side, and it's easier to encourage and raise awareness in that sense. We've also been very, very happy to see changes in the health of the kids. There is a lot less malnutrition. There is a lot less diseases like cholera, because people are taking care of themselves. They know how to do these things. They know how to cook nutritious meals for their kids. And they do that by using their own local material that they actually do in their garden, which is very, very positive. In terms of livelihoods, we see people, long ago, people were living around these areas. So they were doing poaching in very small amounts because it was just for consumption. But now with awareness raising, with conservation education, a lot more, they are now understanding if they kill these animals, there won't be tourism and there won't be money for them at the end of the day. And so with this education and cycle of thinking and reasoning, we are able to provide them with alternative income activities, such as arts and craft. There's a women and in the communities who are being taught to do sewing. There's women who have been taught to do different arts to sell. They're doing honey, they're doing coffee, they're doing we are providing technical assistance for the contact farmers. So the farmers who are the ones who are model farmers in the communities are being given technical assistance to help them have better harvest, have better how to better organize their yield, how to use hybrid seeds. So all these little tips that improves their harvest, so that they can not only have subsistence farming, but they can have a surplus that they can sell and have income. Now you can see kids with backpacks because their parents can afford to buy that. They no longer using those sack bags to go to school. They now have books, they have better clothing, they now have cell phones. Most of these areas are very rural, so they don't have electricity from the normal electricity companies, but they have solar panels. So they buying radios. So this is how you see development. They see improvement in their homes. They have roofs that are made of zinc, as you mentioned. They have houses built of cement nowadays. So this is how you see development. And we have started to see this, which is very exciting for us.
And then I'm sure, from the going on foot, somebody is going for a piki-piki, a motorbikes. I can see the story, most of the things I relate with, because it's something that you see the transformation in the community when something is unlocking change and working. Some of the discussion you had, when you go to school, you see at the grade 4, the girls are there, less there. the diseases, the honey, the coffee. And I like the image, the kids now go to school with backpacks. And it's really something that you can see even from a stranger point of view. They see the community is moving. Now we have seen, now the animals are coming back. The tourists now, I think now you are full lodge. And then even if not two, I don't recall now, not. And then, so you have now the community side is working, animals are back, leopard is back, huge herd of elephants, they are back. Now, we have seen now the positiveness, the work there, which are now the way forward. If you see, how do you see the future? Which is the way forward again for Gorongosa? How to maintain and sustain and even build up momentum even more for the work, and also the challenges that you foresee.
Well, I think as you said, it's about maintaining and making sure there's sustainability in things that we do. Along these years, there's a lot of things that we've been trying and we have failed, and you try again something else, and you learn experiences from countries like Kenya, for example, that has been doing conservation for a lot more than Mozambique. And so I think this being able to share experiences and learn from other places has been something very, very important and good a way to proceed. And it's always said that it's easy to start something, but to maintain is something else. And so that's where we're focusing and working on now, is to making sure we're maintaining that and improving in whatever we are already doing. I think one of the challenges we have been having is how we can make sure that the community development is also going alongside with sustainability, because we can see that people are improving their lives, they getting these better things, better infrastructure, but we also need to make sure that the conditions are going to be maintained and they will be sustainable. And so how can we do that? Gorongosa National Park is at the moment working in these different projects and programs through funding. So we need to make sure there is funding for these activities to be able to carry on. And so I think challenge number one would be funding. We always working and engaging with new partners. As you said, we work with National Geographic. We've been doing a lot of documentaries, movies about the work that we've been doing, and we're very happy to share with the world and see where people can engage and also learn from what we have been doing so that they can replicate in their own areas. Another challenge we've had for a long time and still do is how can we try and coexist with the animals? So the park is very big, and we don't have fences around the park where there is like a direct link with the communities. And so we've had human wildlife conflicts, and we've been trying to work around that using science, using experiences, and we've been using this very interesting approach, which was actually first done in Kenya, which is the beehive fences, where we put alongside the main crossings of the elephants, because they go into the communities to eat in the farms. And so we try and put fences of beehives along these crossings so that they don't cross along to these communities. And this has been something that is working, and we are trying to make sure that that stays that way. And then we have also wild dogs or painted dogs, which is something that was not in the park for about 30 years. And we were able to successfully reintroduce them, which we're very happy. And they also like run for kilometers and kilometers every day. And so sometimes they're found in communities, but we haven't had cases of them biting people. They normally just eat like the domestic animals. And so that is also another challenge. So yeah, we just work with ongoing challenges like this and trying to maintain this project going.
Human wildlife animals straying in areas, it is the biggest component. And the beehives and the bee, usually they tell me when an elephant see a bee run away. So this is one thing. And I know the wild dogs they're notorious because they move a lot. They can be also stray outside the park and the work. And of course the challenges and opportunities. And I'm very pleased also you are giving out and share your experience in our small podcast that is trying to discuss and see and bring into the world interesting story, especially from our continent, of impact and sustainability. So We are going now to the end, Larissa, and then I want to call, you are a woman, you are what they call the Mulher Mozambicana, no? I remember the day of Mulher Mozambicana that was celebrated when I was there. And then, the leadership of women, and especially the work you are doing is really wonderful, and particularly also something that full the hearts and soul of people. And then I want to ask you, which is your call for action, a message that you want to leave to our audience that is listening to us?
Yeah, I think there's many calls of action, but I will focus on me as a young woman, African, who's working in conservation and education, which is things that I believe and I have passion for. The African continent is very big. We are about 20% of world population, and we just keep on growing. And the majority of this population is young. And it's up to us to do something. It's up to us to do something now. And me talking as a woman, we can have a lot of challenges working in specific conservation and away from everything else, a bit challenging in the sense that we are away. If we have family, if we have husband, kids, and to be working away from home can be hard, but it's not something that is impossible. If you believe in something, then give it your all. Work towards something that is brighter for everyone else. And there is no thing that you can focus more on at the moment if it's not becoming green and becoming a better version of yourself. And if you can do that with a smile on your face, then there is no other thing that would make a world a better place.
Wow. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Thank you so much, Larissa, for this wonderful message. And we are very pleased. And as usual, I say, maybe in the future, we'll have a second episode in maybe a year or so to listen and see how we have progressed. It was a real pleasure and honor having you. And thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I really hope that people can get inspired by all these different stories that you're telling the world and inspiring people by having these conversations. And yeah, if you're interested in Gorongosa, please visit us at gorongosa.org or .com. And yeah, you can read and see about us more there. And visit Gorongosa, of course, in Mozambique as well.
And visit Gorongosa. Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.